Excessive resistance seems to drop minute grains of sand on the cogwheel called the mind. The grains of sand may seem insignificant, but they eventually take root in the gaps between the gears and undermine the machine. The weight of will, swinging like a pendulum, breaks the equilibrium between reason and impulse, creating an invisible force field. Deep within the heart that seeks stillness, a steel-like will repeatedly pushes and prods, and its rage reverberates inward as ripples. What one tries to protect by rejecting it is in fact a structure of absurdity that crumbles from within. Every time I strongly insist, "This is me," the outline of me fades more and more and becomes vague. The more I push back, the more I lose something. And the more I pull back, the more I distort the form. The simultaneous progression of convergence and divergence. When we let go of excessive resistance, the gears within start moving smoothly again. That moment is the intersection of true collapse and rebirth. When we listen carefully to the contours of the shadows that arise whenever light touches them, and to their silent ripples, a distortion in the name of resistance is born. The ultimate scream of a being trying to protect itself. Music that echoes in the distorted form of the impulse of self-preservation. The melody becomes a destructive, generative force that transcends the boundaries of consciousness, using inner friction as a fuse. When resistance is excessive, harmony loses its tuning fork, and the contradiction lurking within the self bares its teeth. The stronger the rejection of the external world, the more the tuning of the internal world collapses, and the more the echoing voice stabs the self. Excessive resistance is a clumsy form of salvation that hurts the self in its attempt to save itself. If excessive resistance ignores this question, friction creates a new dynamic of generation and annihilation. There, light and shadow continually struggle, and a storm of division into mutually exclusive categories rages. Eventually, the friction expands. The fissures rising from the depths of existence blur the boundaries between self and other, inside and outside, dream and reality, and have the potential to reconfigure everything. But this reconfiguration is painful. Friction is not an impulse to break, but to be reborn. The new horizon that spreads out at the end of excessive resistance is a place where harmony and chaos intersect once again. In that place, friction is no longer an enemy, but embraced as part of existence itself. Resistance is but one boundary. The more we resist the pressure of the outside world, the more the inner distortion is amplified, and invisible cracks emerge in a space that should be empty. Friction is not just friction. It is a questioning of existence itself, a resonance of the countless cracks that form between the concepts of self and other. Eventually, the energy of resistance loses its destination, and at the point of convergence, a new form is generated. It is neither destruction nor creation. No, it is neither. Inner friction is simply proof of being, and its excessive resistance is the door to an imaginary space that contains infinite possibilities. The deeper the silence deepens, the clearer the voices that resonate within it become, and the multi-layered self-structure continues to expand beyond its limits. The moment one realizes that it is the fate and blessing of human beings to live between the overwhelming inside and outside, the excessive resistance is released, and the friction plays a new harmony. Eventually, the resistance breaks its boundaries, and the friction becomes a diffuse wave that converges into a moment when everything simply crosses a single boundary. The true nature of the force that pushes back is actually a contradiction hidden inside the one being pushed back. The sound of friction is like the creaking of steel, but in fact it resembles the shattering of glass. The map of the inner world continues to expand while the lines remain blurred, and the contours of resistance disappear, returning to mere wind. Freedom is not born at the end of resistance, but appears as a faint sprout as the friction burns itself out. Only then will one realize that resistance is not the enemy of the outside world. Resistance is not an external enemy, but a self-imposed unconscious structure.